Over the past century, ufology has increasingly abandoned the extraterrestrial hypothesis in favor of more sophisticated views pioneered by the likes of Charles Fort, John Keel, and Jacques Vallée. Fort concluded that Earth is a farm and we are someone else's property. Keel believed that the UFO phenomenon is a psychic phenomenon, reflecting back our own projected beliefs. And Vallée suggested that aliens weren't space visitors, but multidimensional intelligences beyond space-time putting on a false front. When we objectively dive into these possibilities, we are forced to acknowledge that the phenomenon is so complex and multifarious that only a bigger picture approach has any hope of understanding it. Toward this end, I have identified at least 5 aspects that comprise a bigger picture understanding of the alien presence. They are the quantum, paraphysical, psychic, hyperhistorical, and spiritual aspects. First, the quantum aspect. Quantum mechanics allows for so-called spooky phenomena at the atomic scale, such as 1. Particles passing through solid barriers. 2. Past and present and future interacting with each other backwards and forwards through time. 3. The existence of multiple probable futures and probable pasts. And 4. The observer's own consciousness playing a role in which probability ends up manifesting. Now compare this with aliens. 1. Passing through solid walls and levitating abductees out closed windows. 2. Stating, or acting as if, they are time travelers from the future attempting to reconfigure their own past. 3. Seemingly coming from different probable futures, and by implication, engaging in a kind of time war. And 4. Engaging in information warfare, telepathic persuasion, and mind control in order to manipulate our free will towards manifesting their intended probable future. So it seems like macroscopic quantum phenomena comprise a large part of the phenomenon. Second, the paraphysical aspect. Aliens demonstrate variable physicality between the more material and the more phased-out state of existence. This allows them to phase into our current space and time, or phase through solid objects, or become invisible, or retreat to pocket dimensions that are nowhere in our own universe. And when here, they can bend space and they can distort time. For example, the amount of space inside of their ships has been observed by many experiencers to be greater than is apparent from the outside. Similarly, linear time can be frozen during the onset of an abduction, or slowed down inside ships and bases so that many hours pass there while only a few pass back in the abductee's home. So they're able to manipulate the very fabric of space-time, and that implies being able to leave space-time entirely. By entering into hyperspace and becoming freed from the fetters of linear time and 3D space, they can access superluminal travel, time travel, and perhaps even travel between alternate timelines. None of this is actually impossible according to quantum mechanics and general relativity. It can be done by artificially controlling quantum phase and the gravitational potential. Third, the psychic aspect. To their own detriment, nuts and bolts ufologists shy away from studying parapsychology and the occult. But parapsychology has shown what mere humans can do in terms of telepathy, telekinesis, extrasensory perception, remote viewing, and remote influencing. It's therefore no surprise that aliens can demonstrate such skills too, just to a much higher degree. Experiencers report that aliens can communicate vast information at high speeds, mind to mind, or mentally transmit speech without moving their mouths. They can telepathically read and influence our thoughts and feelings, and they can do so remotely or nearby and invisibly. They can also psychically view probable futures and manipulate the current situation with that privileged knowledge. So we definitely need to remember this post-disclosure, should they ever open negotiations with human diplomats, since these negotiations would likely be shams due to the unfathomable psychic advantage and control that aliens would wield over their human counterparts. Now, another component to the psychic aspect is how our consciousness interacts with reality. A principle of the Hermetic tradition states that thoughts are things, and things are thoughts. In other words, consciousness is primary and matter is only secondary. Mind can influence matter and therefore influence probability. John Keel discovered this in his own way when paranormal and alien phenomena kept mirroring back his own beliefs. Vallée and others have likewise noted a shape-shifting trickster-like quality to much of the phenomenon. So whether it's entities riffing off our own beliefs, or reality literally warping at the quantum level, it's important to recognize that the phenomenon may be responsive to the contents of our own consciousness. In the more extreme cases, this can produce a kind of runaway feedback loop where obsession and intense fear or love of aliens increases their tangibility and frequency of contact in one's life, which leads to even deeper mental and emotional preoccupation, which even further increases their presence. The final result of this process can be so horrifying or so ludicrous that I'm personally skeptical that real aliens have the time or even the creativity to be performing such antics. It's possible, therefore, that beyond a certain point, what's being manifested in such cases is no longer a genuinely autonomous alien group, but more some kind of tulpa or egregore, or some kind of a spurious quantum state that has no independent existence of its own. In the infamous Philip experiment of 1972, a series of seances was conducted, in which the dead spirit to be invoked was a completely fictional character. But to the surprise of the experimenters, such an entity did come through, complete with a rich personal history, and the entity even exhibited telekinetic effects. But since no such historical person even existed, this Philip was either an artificial creation of the participants' psyches, or some imposter entity who adapted itself to their expectations. If this is happening in the UFO and abduction field, such cases would greatly contaminate the UFO and abduction literature with self-generated phenomena that are mockeries of the real thing. And that could explain the more zany alien encounters of the 50s and 60s, before cultural consensus funneled people's beliefs into the stereotypical gray, Nordic, reptilian, and mantis tropes. Fourth, the hyper-historical aspect. This concerns not so much the history of UFO sightings and abductions, which is well studied, but rather the history of the alien civilizations themselves, their past alliances and wars, what probable futures or timelines they're associated with, and what has brought them to this point. You see, without knowing any of this, we are partially blind to their true motives. The hyperhistorical aspect also includes our own personal history, one extending back even into our past lives, and what interactions we may have had with aliens back then that may be carrying over into our current lives. A recurring theme in the abduction literature is the idea of soul contracts, whereby whether in this life, in the afterlife before being born, or in a past life, an abductee or contactee made an agreement with an alien faction for some mutual benefit or merely as a volunteer for a greater good. Related is the idea that an abductee or contactee is actually an alien soul in a human body, one getting watched and contacted by their own kin. If true, that would make more sense than it being a mere random human who has so curiously a close relationship with an alien group. The risk in that case, however, would be that if they only had a vague impression of having a soul contract with aliens, they could get easily fooled by an enemy alien faction into believing that those are the actual kin, and thus giving consent to the wrong side for further abductions and therefore sabotage. Without the context of such hyperhistory, we are cast into the middle of a movie knowing nothing about what came before that point. Then it's very easy to throw our hands up and label UFOs and aliens as mere incomprehensible phenomena. But despite all the false narratives that delusional people have invented and aliens themselves have disseminated about their nature, origins, and motives, it would be foolish to dismiss all narratives and say that no narratives exist, that the alien presence is solely the work of some nebulous interdimensional trickster intelligence. There may indeed be a real hyperhistory behind the alien presence on our planet and in our lives individually, and we should seek to understand it. And fifth, the spiritual aspect. It's tempting to think that aliens are so advanced and strange that they transcend all human spirituality, ethics, morality, and politics, that these fields have no bearing on aliens, or that attempting to do so is mere anthropomorphism. Well, what's actually strange is how the most commonly encountered alien types have 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, a mouth, and appendages just like humans do. They can breathe our air. We can breathe theirs. Greys have reportedly been hybridized with humans, showing genetic compatibility. And Nordic types could even pass for human on the streets. They've been seen to get frustrated, if not angry at times, despite their normally stoic demeanor. As superhuman as they are, there's too much about them that's a little too human to warrant abandoning the application of our spirituality and ethics in judging them. As such, we can recognize the existence of good and evil among aliens, according to the fruits of their efforts and the nature of the conscious energy that we can intuitively detect behind their eyes. The utter malice is palpable in some, and their actions prove it. Others are skilled enough to psychically project artificial positive energy as a persuasion tactic that disguises their true intentions. But like with a con artist flashing a smile, a good clairvoyant can see through it. And the rare remainder of aliens reportedly exude a genuine spiritual warmth backed by profound words and actions that demonstrate a highly spiritual system of ethics. The grand implication of this is that the spiritual battle between darkness and light, between good and evil, is present not only within ourselves, not only in society, nor just in the occult domain between angel-like and demon-like entities, but also in the alien domain. Their version of good and evil may not be as simplistic as our humanistic conception, let alone what religion thinks of it, but some form of that duality seems to exist among the sundry alien presences. We should keep this in mind. In conclusion, we need at minimum these 5 key aspects: the quantum, the paraphysical, psychic, hyperhistorical, and spiritual, in order to understand the bigger picture and recognize that the phenomenon is more than just some nebulous, chaotic mystery, and definitely more than the extraterrestrial hypothesis suggests. There is order behind the chaos, and it is up to us to find it.